Okay, well, yeah, if you were to ask me what one of the most unsettling movies of 2018 was, Suspiria. Suspiria stars Dakota Johnson, Tilda Swinton, and is directed by Luca Guadagnino. What's up, guys? It's brand new 2018 movie review time. Suspiria, the remake. This is one of my most anticipated movies of the year. I actually drove an hour away in Orlando just so I could see this movie. Didn't think I was going to be able to see it until it came on VOD, but luckily I had to be in Orlando today, and I thought, hey, I'll catch Suspiria while I'm there. Plus, this is a movie that I think you want to see on the big screen, and I'm glad that I did, and there is a lot to discuss in this movie. Oh my God. And let me just say, before I get into this review, I literally just watched this movie merely hours ago, like a few hours ago. It's still there, like percolating in my head, and it's settling. You know, it's one of those types of films that I would say you probably need a couple of days just to let it settle a bit. And so this is just my knee-jerk reactions. You know, what I can tell you about how I'm feeling about this movie. And I like that. I like a movie that you know, you need to let set a bit and, you know, gather your thoughts. Because, you know, let's face it, most movies today, they're like cheeseburgers. They're in and out real quick, and, you know, you're on to the next movie. You know, we as reviewers, when we do get the chance to see these types of films that we might not necessarily like that much at first, but we know that there are some emotions to be worked through along the way, then to me that's a good thing. And I also will say that I think this is a movie that requires multiple viewings. I've only seen this one time. My opinion on this movie could very well change with repeat viewings, because it is a lot to take in. But first, quick plot synopsis. This will be a non-spoiler review, by the way. I'm not going to spoil anything for you guys. Now, not really talking about the original 1977 classic, which happens to be one of my favorite movies of all time. Just look at that South Korean Blu-ray. It's gorgeous. It's pretty much the same story, and if you don't know what that story is, our main character is Susie Bannon, played by Dakota Johnson. She is from Ohio, and she comes to Germany to enter this dance school, because this is a school that she admires. You know, it's a very prestigious school, at least in her mind. And so when she gets there, it starts getting weird pretty damn quick. And pretty early on in the movie, they show you these like dance set pieces, these dance movements that happen, and they just feel unnatural. That's what really captivates you about the dancing sequences in this movie. And if I remember correctly, the original movie didn't focus on the dancing, not nearly as much as this one does anyway. But the dancing in this movie is so mesmerizing. It's beautiful at one glance, and then at the next glance, it's horrifying. That's what's neat about it. But there's this really challenging dance called the Volk that Tilda Swinton, who plays Madame Blanc, she is one of the heads of the school. And there is this dancer by the name of Olga that, you know, she's older and she can't perform the dance. And so the witches, they want to get rid of Olga pretty much. And so during this scene, this is pretty freaking crazy actually. Susie steps up, she says, hey, I've studied this dance, I think I can do it. And so during that dance, Madame Blanc actually casts this like spell on her. So every movement she does affects Olga. And that sequence, let me just say, is pretty damn crazy. You see just a little bit of it in the trailer, but from, you know, just from a production standpoint, from an effects standpoint, it's pretty damn crazy to look at. And I found myself wondering, like, how in the hell did they pull that off? But the original dancer that was supposed to do the part, Patricia, played by Grace Moretz, she fled. We see her at the beginning of the movie. And so she's talking to Dr. Joseph, who is also played by Tilda Swinton. Tilda Swinton plays 3 different parts in this movie, by the way, guys. And she does such a phenomenal job. But at the beginning of the movie, Patricia, she is pretty upset about what she has witnessed at the school, and she doesn't want to be any part of it anymore. So throughout the rest of the movie, Madame Blanc, she is focusing her attention on Susie, trying to court her. Really, she's got her own motivations, though. She's courting her for, like, I guess the ultimate witch, Helena Marcos, one of the 3 mothers. But there's also this character, one of the other dancers, played by Mia Goth, named Sarah. She starts getting suspicious in the middle of the movie, and she starts talking to Dr. Joseph And Josef's interesting in this movie because he thinks there's more of a psychological reason, and he believes that the house mothers actually believe that they are witches. And look, guys, I'm being very careful with the plot here because there's a lot in that third act that I'm not going to go into because obviously spoilers. I might do a full-on spoiler review because to talk spoilers in this movie would take probably a full review's length. There's a lot of stuff going on. But first off, the big thing I got to talk about is Luca Guadagnino. This is a director's vision here. You know, a lot of these remakes that we see are just really horror movies in general. You're going to have a pretty standard director in there, but Luca is one of those, you know, one of those cream of the crop, one of those like top 5% directors that really puts his stamp on the movie that he's putting out. And this one has some startling scenes in it because of the direction. Especially when you're talking about horror, it seems like directors take the quickest route to scare the audience. And in this movie, this is some of the most unsettling imagery I've ever seen in a horror movie, or at least this year anyway. Specifically in these nightmare sequences. Susie, throughout this movie, she's having these nightmares because Madame Blanc is actually inserting these dreams into her head. And these sequences are really invented from an editing standpoint, but more importantly, they're just chilling as hell. And I had my wife sitting next to me, and my wife's not like you and me. She's not like a diehard horror fan. So I was kind of worried about her during these scenes. That's how effective they are. And that's a good thing for us. But these are visions that will take the jaws of life to get out of your skull. And you know, they're like quick flashes. You know, they're dream imagery, but they're directed so well. And not just the nightmares, but there's so many sequences in this movie that are just confusing, unsettling. You'll go through a whirlwind of emotions just watching these things. But more importantly too, you know, when comparing this to the original Suspiria, this is a completely different vision. And if you're going to remake a classic, you don't want to copy it beat for beat. You really want to stray as far away from it as you can and try to form your own message. I guess that's what John Carpenter did with The Thing. You know, The Thing is very different from The Thing from Another World. This is the same case with Suspiria, all the way down to the music. Tom York actually does a good job with the score in this movie, but to me, nothing will ever compare to the masterful score of Goblin in the original. And, you know, in the last act, he does borrow a little bit of Goblin in there, but just barely. But for the most part, this score really fits this movie. You would not want to use the Goblin score in this movie, actually. I don't think it would fit. But, you know, from a cinematography standpoint, from a direction standpoint, from a music standpoint, this feels so much different than the original. Most of the time, I wasn't even thinking of the original. That's how different this movie was, which is a good thing. I wasn't comparing it. You know, it felt like its own vision. Hell, even a lot of the violence scenes and the kill scenes are completely different from the original. Also, the dance sequences, I have to talk about those dance sequences in this movie because, again, they're just really unsettling, yet beautiful, yet nightmarish. There's just like something so unique about it. You know, they're really edgy. There's one sequence where Madame Blanc, she's trying to work with Susie, trying to get her to work on her jumps on how high she can go. And from a sound editing standpoint, you could feel like every beat in that segment of the movie. Every time her feet hit the ground, it felt like it hurt. And also, all the acting in this movie is really great. Tilda Swinton especially, I think, because she pulled off three parts in this movie. But I just watched the movie We Need to Talk About Kevin with Tilda Swinton, and it just, you know, it just reminded me how great of an actress she is. She's one of the better actors of our modern age, and she really carries most of this movie on her shoulders, as well as Dakota Johnson. Dakota Johnson, who I was not a big fan of in the 50 Shades of Grey movies, and that's not really her fault, but in this movie, she really brings her A game. An A for acting. She does a fantastic job, actually. But not just like acting chops, but like physically. A lot of the dance moves that she has to pull off in this are pretty extraordinary. And, you know, I'll go ahead and say I'm sure that a few of those had like, you know, stunt doubles or stand-ins. But there's a lot of sequences where you can tell it's her actually doing the moves, you know. And from just, you know, a physical standpoint, she looks the part. You can tell that she worked really hard to be able to be a convincing dancer. And she does a damn good job. Now that last act, guys, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but let me just say, this is where I started getting into the cons a little bit, because I think I would have wanted something a little bit more ambiguous in that last act, and it's not really ambiguous at all, but it is pretty head-scratching. And this is, especially this section right here, is the one that I'm looking forward to giving it another watch, because it is a lot to process what goes on in that last act. It's almost like they pick up the box and they dump everything out of it, so that way you don't miss anything. Now, I've already scratched the surface on the cons, but also this is a long movie. It's a lot to take in. Like I said, it's 2.5 hours, and you might come out of it scratching your head like, wow, that was a lot to take in. You might even have a headache, but after letting it settle for a couple hours, and really starting to think about it, it definitely has me curious to give it another viewing. And that's a really good thing to me. I love movies that you don't necessarily know how you feel when you walk out of them. I tend to gravitate towards those movies more than just your cheeseburger movies for some reason. But maybe that's just me. This movie's not going to be for everybody. I guess that's the point that I'm trying to get across. But for me, I think with repeat viewings, I'm going to enjoy it even more. I think they could have tightened it up lengthwise, but overall, I still really enjoyed it. I'm going to give it a low purchase worthy. So anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on Suspiria in the comments. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day, and on Fridays, we do Free For All Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and now Stardust. If you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.